Okay, so live.
And then it stopped.
Oh, it's up on the phone.
Yeah. Okay. Try that again.
Looks like it. Okay, so it's starting. Okay, look, you can see you. I'm looking at your. Okay, I'm looking at the map. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. I don't know why it zoomed in that far. You know what? That's gonna be the Wi-Fi that's giving us the spottiness. I'd almost bet that it's because everybody here is probably like on their Wi-Fi.
I don't know if they can give you a hardware connection. Okay, so I'm looking at. Am I watching your camera?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Look at that. It works. How did we do that?
Well, just as long as I don't log out, it'll be fine. How's the audio over there?
Yeah, the audio's fine.
Okay. Okay. Now let's do it again.
The problem is
The freaking
it's grainy.
yeah.
Quality is not good. I mean, holding the camera still helpful. Yeah, so,
Oh, here, let me.
are you able to get we have here? I don't know what. I don't even have it. I don't know what the name of this is.
So that's got to be. That's like a minute behind.
It is. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Okay, it's only 3G here.
Streaming.
For the logo. There he is. He doesn't say
Hey,
hi.
how's it going, bro?
You're a star. Now you're a star. You don't talk to me
No,
anymore. do you?
I was doing something stupid.
Yeah,
Or like,
you're famous everywhere I go. Where's Zach? What's he doing? It's true. It's true. That was so good.
How you
That
doing,
was
man?
so good. Good. That thing's been used all over the place.
Oh, really?
All kinds of, all kinds of great things. It's just like that. We just worked with, did a thing in prison for sexual misconduct in prison that Hakeem Bellamy did.
Oh, wow.
It was really nice. Yeah.
Nice.
It was really
Yeah.
I didn't know him, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I mentioned
yeah,
it to him, and he said, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
So yeah.
The only time we get to see each other is when we work together.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Lame.
That's
So,
very cool.
what you got going? What are you speaking on today?
Community violence.
Oh, okay.
Because all the videos were in the packet for the date violence thing, the domestic violence. See Mommy Cry, human trafficking that we did for you all 3 years ago, and
Oh yeah.
another one. I can't think of what it is, but I'll remember when I'm up there.
Yeah. Oh, Chris, I'm sorry. This is my son, Kieran. Kieran, have you met Chris?
Yeah, I think we have. At one point, I think we did. Maybe.
At
Was he
the
at the
premiere.
premiere?
I don't know. Were you at the?
Premiere with the bowling thing at the chemo? Maybe not. I'm not sure. I do recognize you somewhere.
I didn't know.
That's all right.
Yeah, we're all here now. So there it
Excellent.
is.
Excellent.
James Ferreira.
This is great. God, this place.
I know. I'm like, we're at church.
This is awesome.
For real?
I love it.
Well, this is working. But it's gonna be green.
Well, the camera not moving itself.
Yeah. Alright.
Love it. Yeah, I'm not. The 3G here is non-existent, so that's
Well,
yeah, there's just no over here. I mean, it's on 3G network out here. There's no high speed wireless.
what about? See, Bamboozler wasn't too bad.
Not as accessible.
Well, you just get the link. That's all.
YouTube, you have anything on YouTube? It's not like it's not like a major thingy. What's
That only like came up when we logged on. It looks like it was acting like a kind of like a signal strength type thing.
So here's the thing. I think that this is probably going to broadcast the signal from the computer. Well, it's still good. Okay, so where are we going to set it up? Maybe we should go test it where it's going to be.
Yeah, it's gonna be like right on the edge of the stage, pretty much.
Oh, up close to the stage.
Yeah. Hey, Karen, grab the laptop.
I guess I need to be out. Should I be out here?
Whatever you want.
We're starting pretty quick.
Yeah, Steve is up on the stage. What do you think? Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me? Probably with or without the microphone, you can hear me fine. We want to go ahead and get started, and if this is beaming out into the foyer and there's anybody there, it's time to come in and get seated. So we can go ahead and begin with the 2014 Summit on Community Violence. My name is Steve, and I'm excited to be here this morning. My only disappointment is that I can't stay all day, and as I look through the agenda, I see some critically important subjects that you folks are going to be talking about, learning about, and taking back to your areas of influence in the community. So I'm very excited that you're here, and I hope that the great things will come out of this morning. And this afternoon, of course. A couple of quick housekeeping things before we get started. For the breakout session, law enforcement credit, the sign-in sheet is in each room with the proctor. Social work CEU available for Anna Nelson's morning presentation in the student auditorium, dating violence and stalking using technology. Restrooms are outside the auditorium to your left. That may be the most important announcement I'll make today. Refer to your programs for the breakout session room locations, and lunch, another one of my favorite subjects, that will be held in the student auditorium. And then we ask that you please take a few moments to fill out evaluations that are going to be available in each room after each breakout session. And if you have any questions throughout the day, look for staff members from the AGO. They're all wearing those really cool light green shirts that makes them very visible here. We want to go ahead and get started with a session that we think is a great way to kick this off. We expect that this will be very informative and quite impactful for each and every one of us. And it starts with a guy that many of you are familiar with. He's been involved in Albuquerque television since I was a little boy, and has produced hundreds of television programs over the past 20 years, has something like 23 Emmys, and he has a list of awards that would take probably longer than our presentation, but just suffice it to say that these are important awards. They're given for programs that he produces that air around the nation, many of them here in New Mexico, that really make a difference in our communities. He's key to our first presentation today, and so please help me welcome television's Chris Schuler.
I
You know
don't
what?
even look like Gary King.
You know what? I don't know why they invited me. The very first thing I did was wrong today. Chris is next on the program. We'll welcome him again in a few minutes.
And he can say it all over again and make up more good.
I can't believe I just did this. We're starting with the office that is sponsoring this today, the State Attorney General of New Mexico. Please help me welcome the right first speaker, Gary King.
No problem. I thought I developed a whole new resume. So thank you all. Indeed, my part of this is fairly short, but important. First off, I want to thank the folks at Copper Point Church and the folks at Grand Canyon College and Lynn, who else am I missing, that are sponsors of this, AG's office. All of the sponsors. This is really important. This is our second summit on community violence. The first one focused very specifically on human trafficking and a lot of the issues around human trafficking. I know that Copper Point has since then carried on, is doing a lot of work. Congress continues to do a lot of work with regard to the issues of human trafficking. But there's so many issues out there that we have to address. And so it takes a lot of people. And that's why I'm really happy to have all of you here. So today we're going to talk about a variety of issues, some really important issues. And I hope that you will find it educational, informative, but most of all, I hope that it will give you some enthusiasm to go out there and continue doing the work in the communities that you're doing. And I see a lot of community people here already. I say Anna came up and said hello to me, Anna Nelson, who we've worked with a lot on a variety of issues. A little dark out there, so I can't see who else out there I know that has been working on these issues. I know that Anthony Mays today is going to be talking about some issues that we're doing. I see we have law enforcement out there. thank you all. We really appreciate the work you do. Chief, I see the chief out there. Thank you so much for being here. You know, and I saw some folks from CYFD coming in. Lots of different agencies that work on these issues. They're really important. And you know, if you just watch the news, sometimes you will think that the world is indeed getting to be a very scary place. And that's, you know, some of those things are make good news, but what they sometimes miss is how many people are out there working to make the world a positive place. And so I want to thank all of you for being people that want to make the world a positive place. And Anthony, I heard on the national radio this morning, they were talking about Operation Broken Heart in California, where they've arrested a number of child pornographers, child molesters, those kinds of issues. We had that operation here. As a matter of fact, Anthony Mays was the person who spearheaded that on a national basis. It was Anthony's idea to do a national sweep to help make our children safer. I'm very proud of the work that my office does with regard to those kinds of issues. And sometimes it's just that one person pushing that one good idea that makes all the difference in the world. And you're going to see people today, both here and in the breakout sessions, that have those good ideas that want to press and make good things happen. So thank you all so much for being here today to help make our world, our area here in Albuquerque and the state of New Mexico a more positive place for children, a more positive place for families, a more positive place, frankly, for us to work positively with our law enforcement. Like I said, we really appreciate you guys being here. Just all the things that we can do to address this. So we don't want this to be a scary thing about community violence. We want this to be an important step forward for how we're going to work together to make our community a wonderful place. So that being said, I don't know if Steve gets to come back and introduce Chris again, or if we're just going to. So let me say that Chris and I and our office have worked on a number of issues: teen dating violence, distracted driving, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, all of those kind of things. There really is hardly anybody that individually does do more to help our young people in the state of New Mexico than Chris Schuler. So I'm very proud to share a stage with him and to bring him on. Thanks, Chris.
So, first of all, thank you all for being here, for the work that you do. This is, I mean, the question is, what do I know about violence? I'm a television producer, I'm a documentary producer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a storyteller, and that's what I do. But I was thinking about it this morning, and I think what happens is we're all challenged in this community, and the challenge is to change the conversation. The challenge is to educate. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking that, first of all, you know a lot more about violence than I do, and than I ever will in several lifetimes. I know many of you, and I worked with many of you on several of these documentary programs, and I've learned a tremendous amount. But I think our challenge really is that you need to get more tools. You need to get more help. You need to get more support. You need to get more funding. You need to get whatever those things are. You know those things. And the way to get those tools is what I want to talk about. The way to get those tools, I think, is that the community itself, our state and our individual communities, need to understand violence in ways that they really don't. In ways that I didn't until I started working on all these things with Gary and Channel 4 and these other people as I learned about it. They need, our decision makers need to understand violence the way you understand violence. And as a result, if we can do that, and I'm going to give you some tools to do that in just a second, but if we can do that as a group, then the conversation changes. Then the dialogue changes. Then the verbiage changes. The verbiage changes from someone who's a criminal to someone who actually is a victim when we become a prostitute. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I think we need to change the conversation, and we can do that. We can do that together in a variety of ways. We actually all have the tools that we need right now to make this conversation change. Let me explain that.
Now, what I do know, based on the research that we've done for these various programs, and the interviews that we've done with people, that you will meet in your packets, you should have, all of you, there's a DVD in there. And Gary's office has been very kind to reproduce these DVDs. And in it, there's several different programs. I'm going to tell you just a snippet about each one of them. And that's one of the tools that you can use. I'll tell you more in just a second. But I mentioned I'm a storyteller, and I want to make you storytellers too. Because you have the stories that people need to hear. We're going to hear an incredible story from Candace in just a few minutes. And we can all take that story and use that to educate people in the appropriate manner. But one of the young women that I met when we did the Date Violence program just about 3 years ago was a young girl from Silver City. Her name was Cheyenne Turner. And when I was interviewing her, she was 17 at the time. And she said, I really thought it was love when my boyfriend was so interested in me that he wanted to know where I was every moment of the day. You're all shaking your heads. One of the warning signs, right? One of the red flags that Anna's going to talk about in her presentation later on. And she really thought it was love when she didn't text back right away. He would get very angry. What are you doing? Where are you doing? What are the people doing? All these things she didn't know, she did not understand. It was her first boyfriend. That was her story. Her story is told in the video Date Violence. It's the packet there. Now, she thankfully was not the young lady who ended up murdered in the program. She ended up with a very positive outcome. But through her story, and you can use this story in your work, it's in your video packet, young people will understand what those red flags are. Young people hopefully will understand in some way what a healthy relationship looks like. And that's the key, isn't it? I mean, especially for young people. They need to see and witness what a healthy relationship looks like. And that's one of the things we all can do. We're adults. We can mentor a young person. You have young people in your lives. I don't have kids, but in some sense I have 150 kids who I work with every day in New Mexico, so I think they're my kids. So we can mentor them. We can show them what these things are like, and we can role model for them. I also learned from Cheyenne and from Anna and from several of the other people here that I wasn't asking the right questions of her. That my questions initially were, and I think this is the general population understanding of violence, state violence or domestic violence, the question they always ask is, my God, why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she leave? And that was the first question I asked, too. And I learned very quickly that is the absolute wrong question to ask. The question to ask is, why does the abuser abuse? Because we can learn very quickly why she doesn't or can't leave. You know all these answers. But if we can change that conversation for our law enforcement personnel, for our politicians, and for everybody else who's empowered to make these changes, if we change their questions, that will be a huge part of making the change that we're talking about. Let me ask you a question. How many of you are wearing wristwatches? Raise your hand if you're wearing a wristwatch. Okay. All right. That means you're over 40. I've learned this. And that means that you're a digital immigrant. You are not a digital native. If you're under 25, you're a digital native. What does that mean? Well, we all know the world is changing. We did a show, and I think Gary was involved in this too. It was called Crash. It was all about distracted driving issues. We did another one this year called Driven Distraction. Well, in 2007, we did Crash. 2007, we drove around Albuquerque for 2 days and couldn't film anyone who was on a cell phone. In 2007. That's how much it's changed. Now, you drive, pulling up here, I stopped at the stoplight, looked over, there's somebody going, you know. So digital has changed everything. And what does that mean? Well, what that means is all this technology is a growing part of the issue and part of the problem. All this technology that we have, Facebook and Twitter and Foursquare and Pinterest and Vine and all the thousands of other things, is in fact one of the problems in the violence arena. And the reason for that is, of course, cyberbullying, which you'll hear about later today as well. We did a program called Bystanders that Zach, where's Zach? There's Zach. Zach was a big star in Bystanders with his great music and rap. And Anna Nelson was also a big star in Bystanders. There were a lot of people who were in this program who talked about cyberbullying. If you don't know what that is, if you don't believe it's happening, wake up. Just look around and ask anybody under the age of 17, and they will tell you it's happening, and they have had it happen to them or their friends, and it's a very, very frightening, scary thing. That program, Bystanders, and the cyberbullying element of that is in your DVD that you've got with you. We've got to educate parents and youth and law enforcement on this issue, and we've got to teach children, and first the adults, us, have to learn what is the etiquette online. What is the etiquette? We have parents who now, we're doing a program right now, I'll tell you what's going to air in just a second. We're doing a program right now called Netiquette. Netiquette. I thought we had made that up, and I was just in Indonesia, and I brought it up over there because I was doing a seminar for people, and 5 people came up after and said, we've been using the word netiquette for the last 3 years. I'll still claim it here. But the issue is that we need to learn what's going on. Parents say, oh, I'll block my kid from these sites. Not going to happen. We used to say, I don't know if you remember this, we used to say, keep your computer in a common area where you can see it. Remember those? Keep your computer there so we can all see it in the thing. Doesn't matter. Smartphones, every kid has access now. 98% of young people in this country today access social media via the internet. 98%. I mean, that's off the charts, right? I mean, Facebook and all the other, I mean, there's so many things now, it's just amazing. So we need to learn about it, we need to understand it, and the key there is, which is fascinating to me, it's not about blocking them. It's not even necessarily about telling them how to stay away from the weird sites. What it's about is teaching them a moral compass. It's about teaching them a code of conduct for themselves. And we talk about this in the program. We talk to a lot of experts, a lot of scientists. We talk to a lot of family therapists. How does that conversation begin? Because, and they describe it very well, the internet is a glorious, spectacular place where you can look at history from all the past. You can visit anywhere in the world, and just like New York City, you can walk down the wrong street real quick. And what you have to know is, where are you? Where are you going to go? And how are you going to get there? And that's what we have to teach our young people. So we talk about that in the program. So I would encourage you to have your friends and yourselves and tell our elected officials to watch a program called Netiquette. It's going to be on Channel 4, Steve's station, Channel 4 on August 28th. I just found this up yesterday so the first people know it, in prime time from 7 to 8 p.m. August 28th. It's called Netiquette. If you want a copy of that, don't tell anyone else. You can get this through safety.net, and you can go online and you can order it there, and it's $10. Now, this is what you don't want to tell anybody. If you don't have $10, on the page it says you don't have $10, just click here and we'll do it anyway. So you can get it anyway. Now, if we're a nonprofit, so if you want to help out a little bit, great. But if you can't, it's okay. We want to get it out there to you. That'll be coming up in late August. We encourage you to watch it. The other thing that's in your program, and this is something that's important to me, because I mentioned I just came back from Indonesia. I was in Surabaya, Indonesia. Surabaya is the second largest city in Indonesia. They call it the small sister city of Jakarta. It's across Java from Jakarta. And it's a small city, they say. It's only 6 million people. And they have the largest red light district in Southeast Asia. We drove down that street, and it was eye-opening. Sad, disheartening. We drove down the street, and we looked in the windows that looked like Sears department store windows, huge windows. And there were girls in the windows to pick. 13 and 14 years old. It is an atrocity. What's interesting is that the country is 99% Muslim, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. But what was fascinating was I've been there the last 5 years. I've done projects over there with their national network TV station, and this year I was training students in Surabaya, students 21 to 25 years old, in social issue documentary production, because they believe social issue documentaries can change their country for the better, which I think is fabulous. So I come in and I help train those documentary producers. And what was fascinating to me is this week, thank God, the mayor of Surabaya, a woman, shut down the red light district. It's legal. She shut it down. She said, we're closing. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sure. Now, it's much more complex than that, as you can imagine. It has been operating since the Second World War. There's a lot of tax dollars that come in to the city from that district. What happens with all these thousands of prostitutes? Many of the prostitutes were turned over to, they call it the dolly, by their parents, because they needed the money. They have to eat, they have to live, they have to survive. What's going to happen now? I mean, there's all these layers of very difficult decisions that have to be made. The government is going to give each prostitute a chunk of money to find somewhere else to live and to find a way for their lives. Now, many people who are against shutting it down said it's just going to move. So one of the filmmakers that we dealt with, who was an amazing young person, said that they're going to do a story on this. They're going to do a whole documentary on this. They're going to follow 3 different women from this in the next 6 months and see what their journey is going to be. So people can understand, here we go, people can understand the various shades of gray that are associated with this issue. And there's so many of them. I mean, and it's the same thing that you deal with in violence, isn't it? There are so many areas of gray. It's not black and white. It's not, why doesn't she leave? It's not necessarily, why does he beat her? It's poverty. It's jobs. It's what they grew up with as little kids. It's all these things that they don't understand what a healthy relationship is. There's so many areas of gray. And I was learning about that. And then the other thing I experienced while I was there that I want to share with you is, how many of you have traveled in a third world country by yourself? Okay, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, good. You'll know what I'm talking about. You share your experiences with others. When you travel in a third world country by yourself and you don't know the language, it can be a very lonely experience. There are moments during this travel experience that you are lonely. And you are lonely because you don't know the language. You are lonely because it's not the same food, and you're a little worried about some of the food. And you're certainly worried about the water. It is lonely because you go out the door, you may be in a hotel, which is more for a lot of people there, and you go out the door and you don't know where to go to get food. You don't know where to go exactly to do things. You don't have the same operating system. And so you feel a little different. And if you sit with people, now I was very well taken care of, but I'm sitting with people who are talking a different language. I know what they're saying. Every once in a while somebody will give me a piece of what they're saying. But I'm not quite sure. When I was teaching this group of young filmmakers, we had one interpreter in the first day, a wonderful young man, who really didn't know English. And I didn't realize this for the first 4 hours. This was a problem. This was a problem. So we ended up having to not use him the next day, and we brought in another interpreter. And then as I was trying to make my points and do the nuances of words like juxtaposition or symbolism, yeah, you can imagine where this went. Now, this is very disconcerting. Now, take that experience and move it to Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the back room of a big hotel, and a young woman who is 19 years old, who doesn't speak English, whose passport has been taken by a man who brought her here, who says if she says anything to anyone in authority, they will arrest her and throw her in jail for the rest of her life, and she'll never see her kids again. Now we're talking about human trafficking. May not have to be sexual, It may be just slavery, modern day slavery. But imagine that experience for this person here. This is why when I said the conversation needs to change, our law enforcement, and thankfully we did that great little video on human trafficking with the Attorney General's office, I think 3 years ago, Gary, to help law enforcement understand that some of the people they pick up, some of the prostitutes, they are not the criminals. They are victims. And they've got all the different things going on in their head that they have been indoctrinated to, and they're scared to death of the authorities. So it's always gray. And we have to understand that. Now, here's the deal, and I say this, and I apologize, Gary. Politicians, and it's unfortunate, have got to speak in sound bites. Somebody's going to interview Gary here in the back in just a few minutes. He may talk to them for 20 minutes about all of this. And they're going to pick out how long is the soundbite going to run on the news today. Now, it's not that I don't like the news. I like Steve a lot. I like the news a lot. But the problem is they have time constraints. And as a result, it has to be black and white. It has to be, I want better education for our kids. It's not all the complexities of what that demands. But people want to be led in very simple ways. And this is our challenge. This is a big challenge for all of us. We got to make them understand the gray areas. We have to make them and help them to understand all the nuances of what you deal with on a daily basis. So there's a video in there on human trafficking that hopefully will help in some ways. The last thing I want to talk about is, let me see here. I'm sorry, I get all worked up and then I forget where I am. Yes. We need to consider, and this is what I do on a daily basis, who is our audience? I know you deal in the realities, you deal in the trenches, you deal with these people one-on-one, but we all need to understand that if we want to get more tools and more funding and more help and more support, we have to understand who can give us that support and that funding and that help. Here's my lobbying effort. I teach lobbying occasionally. And the deal is, we don't have time nor money, like the tobacco companies or the alcohol companies, to force people to buy our product. We don't. None of us do. I'm guessing none of you have, most of your nonprofits, I am guessing, have little to no marketing budget. You got to put your money into the programs you're doing. But individually, if we can understand who is going to make the decision about your funding, and who's going to make the decision about the support you get. And you can look at the situation through their eyes. That's what I do when I build these documentaries. You can use tools. You'll look at them and you'll go, wait a minute, I already know all that. Well, this wasn't for you. This was for people who didn't understand. People say, why in the See Mommy Cry video about domestic violence are you focusing on kids? We're focusing on kids because the people who make decisions have a variety of views on domestic violence, ranging from, if she's smart, she'll just leave, to pull herself up by the bootstraps and get the hell out of there. I mean, these people have all sorts of different views, but everyone agrees that kids shouldn't be in that situation, no matter what put them there. So we focused on young people. We focused on little kids. We focused on the fact that if you see some little kid abusing their pet, that's an indicator down the road. We focused on all kinds of different things that were red flags to these people. So you need to understand, target your audience, and give them those nuances. Give them the information. And if we can reach that group that can create a change, it's called trim tapping. It doesn't take much. You spend a few minutes talking with your friend, who can actually affect what I'm doing? Who can actually affect and give us the information? And then that's the conversation you have. And you have it with them. I know you don't have a lot of time, but I encourage you to take the time to at least do that. Because if you can affect them, then you can affect the state and the community and everybody else around. There are videos in your packet. Use them. If you want more of them, let me know. Let Gary's office know. We'll get them for you. If you want the Netiquette video that's coming out in August, that's great. Let me know. You can email me through safety.net@crystalproductions.org. That's what we do. So listen, I applaud you and honor you, and I'm feeling so lucky to be here with you today because you guys do the serious work. I just tell stories. Thank you very much. Let's get to work. We have a guest now, and I think I need to cue somebody to roll tape. We're gonna do it in just a second. Let me just tell you a little bit about this. This is going to be a very difficult time for you. The next 45 minutes to an hour is going to be a very difficult time. This story, I know you've heard a lot of stories, but this one is off the charts in terms of difficult to hear, difficult to understand. A lot of nuance, a lot of gray area. We're gonna play you a little piece. It's about 8 minutes long, so you get the background of this young woman who you're going to hear from. And then Steve is going to come back up, and she's going to come up, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to try to understand this with her for the next 45 minutes. So take a listen, and let me introduce you to Candace Stevens.
My name is Candace Stevens. I am the mother of Cheyenne Stevens, 11 years of age, along with twin girls that are 7, and the daughter of Uncle David. June of 2006, my mother lived in Davis and her fiance Christopher Greway. I came to visit me and the girls in Colorado. The twins were only 4 months old. My mom wanted to take Cheyenne back with her for a couple weeks. I thought it would be a good idea for Cheyenne, but the twins had taken a lot of attention away from her. She was 4 at the time. Mike and I would be heading to Albuquerque in a couple weeks for my cousin's wedding. We would pick Cheyenne up at that time. I wanted to rebuild that relationship with my mom. She seemed like she was doing well. What daughter would not want her mom in her life? And Cheyenne loved her meat. That's the name she gave my mom. In February of 2008, the New Mexico AG's office showed up at my door in Colorado. From that day forward, my life changed forever. Detective Lois Kinch had shown me and my husband pictures of a very young naked girl being molested by a man named Christopher Greway, who is currently my mother's fiance. Lois had asked me if I knew who the child was. As much as I wanted to say I have no idea, there was no denying that was my daughter's child. I was sick to my stomach and in shock. I was never touched as a child. You would hear about stuff like this all the time on TV, but it doesn't really hit home until you're a child. It was a nightmare, and 7 years later, it still feels like one. From that day forward, I tried to give my mom the benefit of the doubt that she had nothing to do with it. But she was not at my door. She didn't call to give me a heads up. She showed no remorse. I was told by the AG's office that in September of 2006, they had a warrant for my mom's house and computer. I had visited my mom with the kids 3 times from the time her house was raided and everything seized, till the time Lois Kinch showed up at my door. She never mentioned that the cops had been there or about the allegations against her for herself. All 3 times I stayed with her, I left the children in her sister's care. She never said anything to me about what had happened, what the cops or the computer. She had put my children in danger once again. A couple days after seeing the pictures and talking with Lois, I jumped on getting Cheyenne therapy, along with my aunt. I didn't know how to handle what we were going through. I had a really hard time with taking care of Cheyenne as a mother. I could not bathe her, dress her, or comfort her when she was sick. Everything a mother is supposed to do for her children. I felt dirty, and that I was going to bring up bad memories for her. It took time and therapy to get through that and to understand why I was feeling that way. It's my responsibility as a parent to make sure I help my daughter get through this. My marriage was failed. The fact that my own mother had done this to our baby had caused a lot of guilt and distance. I'm not the one to blame, but I cannot help the fact that I trusted my mom to protect Cheyenne and in her care. I lost my family. They did not believe that this could happen and that I could make up a story about my daughter being abused, and that I had resented my mom for all the craziness in our lives growing up. I lost a lot due to the allegations. I was not the one who turned the pictures over or even knew what was going on. The cops showed up at my door. I did not show up at theirs. I lost my marriage. I lost my family. I lost my mother. And worst of all, I lost my daughter's innocence. No one else in my family has seen those pictures we saw that day. I will never get those pictures out of my head. They haunt me. And I can only imagine what haunts Cheyenne on a daily basis. It's a big burden for a child to carry. I've seen a lot of changes in Cheyenne over the years. Her faith to God is amazing. She's 11. She cries a lot, dresses like a boy, because she thinks kids can tell what has happened to her. This time of her life is scary, with all the growing and changing, along with the images in her head of sexual acts that no child should know about. She has a lot of questions. Therapy has been a lifesaver for us. Cheyenne has seen the same therapist for 7 years. I refuse to let my daughter be a statistic. I would like her to continue therapy until she's 18. She will have a lot of challenges in her life, and I want her to get through them. What have I lost in all of this? In 7 years, I have not missed one court hearing. I have been to all of them, even if I'm not needed. I need to know that I can make some kind of an impact in my daughter's future. It is an 8-hour drive from Denver to Albuquerque. Majority of it has been on my own dime. I have lost jobs for all the time I have missed from work. I lost time with my kids to travel to court. So much time lost with the kids that I would never get back. I'm a single mom now for 5 years. I do not get help with travel and expenses from my kid's father or my family. I have lost a lot of my family. It's sad that when something happens to a child that adults choose sides. My brothers and sisters are suffering as well. My mom has been in and out of our lives for as long as I can remember, due to her selfish habits. We have all given her the second and third chances because she is our mom. It saddens me that my mom is manipulating my brothers and sisters by clinging to them as their children. Because she's suffering from AIDS and is now going to jail for all the mistakes she has made as an adult, drugs to me is not an excuse to neglect as a parent or a grandmother. I believe my mom has manipulated the court. Since she has been released on bond from jail in this case, she has gotten to kiss and hug my little cousins and nephews, go to the casino, go camping out of the county, and live her life trying to make up lost time. I don't think that it's fair to go against all she was told not to do. While I try every day, take time out of my life to battle for justice and safety on my goals. On my only day off of work, I drive back and forth to therapy to just understand why. I want to live a normal life, without all the sadness and stress of attorneys, courts, and travel. I have lost my trust anyone close to me. How could you not? The person who's supposed to be there for you, your mother, is the one who hurt you the most. Things like that should never have to happen to people. This last 7 years have been hell. It's not easy to see your own mother in an orange jumpsuit and shackles and know that you were part of this crazy dream. One thing I have realized is I'm a victim of my mom, just as much as my own daughter. When I was younger, she would cook mess in the kitchen, invite strange men over to have sex with them. They would always hit on me and my sister. I blame my sister's drug use on my mom. She got started at such a young age. Right there, that in my eyes is child abuse and neglect. When Cheyenne was a year old and learning to walk, my mom was staying with us to help out with care for Shire while we were working. One day I found a crack pipe sitting on Cheyenne's dresser in arm's reach for her to grab and put in her mouth. I kicked my mom out and moved back to Colorado. That was the last time I spoke to my mom until I had the twins 3 years later. When I had the twins, I wanted to try and rebuild that relationship with my mom. I regret that now. Why didn't I just stay away? She has been nothing but bad news for us since we were kids. I can go on and on about what my mom has done. I also want to say that we didn't just have bad times. There's a lot of great things my mom did for us when we were younger. It's just hard to express those times when I'm so hurt, angry, and trying to understand why my daughter, why my family, why me. I have the utmost respect for the DA and the AG's office and all the victim advocates, along with the Honorable Judge Stan Whitaker and the Supreme Court. I believe without them, the abuse on Cheyenne or even other children would have continued. My mom does a wonderful job of acting like a respectful citizen. I can rest now knowing that someone was brought to justice and will have to deal with the consequences for what they did to my little girl. And in the end, that's what it comes down to. I'm looking forward to healing and enjoying my girls without all the craziness and stress of court, to grow and to learn from myself. It has made me stronger, and I know that when the smoke clears and time has passed, that we can all mend our broken hearts and get peace within my family and in my children. I pray that my mom will come to terms on what she has done before she leaves this world, and comes clean with herself and the ones she has hurt the most. If anything, this case has made a statement that you cannot harm a child or you will eventually get caught and have to pay for your wrongdoing. I know other sexual predators learn from this case and will think twice before harming our children. For that, please show no mercy and let set an example to the public that no child should have to live in fear. Sincerely, Candace Stevens. We have come a long way in this case. This statement has been very hard to say.
So now you know the story of Candace Stevens, and we're very fortunate and honored to have her with us today. Steve, come on up and bring her in.
All right. Wow. We were talking a little bit before this started, and you really have lost a lot through all this, but you're very determined to take something that was horrible and make it into something good, aren't you?
Definitely. Can you hear me? Yeah, I am very excited to be here, especially 3 weeks after sentencing. I'm going to take something so horrible and make something good.
I want to go back just a little bit. Does this one sound better than that one? I want to go back a little bit. At the very beginning of the tape, it was hard to understand, I think. And I want to make sure you all understand exactly what occurred and at what age. And just going back to the beginning, Lois Kinch, who was from the Attorney General's office, special agent, an incredible woman, had found information and called you. Can you just explain what she said and what happened in that little instance?
Well, my phone was ringing at 5:30 in the morning, and I didn't think anything of it, just kind of let it go. And then about 7:30, 8 o'clock, I listened to the voicemails, and it was a woman from the AG's office in New Mexico, and I was in Denver at the time. And she's like, I need you to give me a call back. And I didn't know what it was about. Continue to feed the kids breakfast and go on with my morning, and then she called again. And I missed it. So then I called her back and I said, can I help you? And she's like, well, I need to speak to you about your oldest daughter and your mother, for when your daughter was out here in New Mexico. And the thing that crossed my mind was, you know, what drugs did my mom get caught with when she had Cheyenne visiting here in Albuquerque?
And how old was Cheyenne?
She was 4 when she came to visit, and at this time, when Lois called me, she was 5. So I said, well, you know, what drugs did she get caught with? And she's like, well, I need to speak to you in person. And I said, well, I got to be at work at 4 o'clock. So what time do you think you're coming over? Well, I'm leaving Albuquerque now, so I should be there in 7.5, 8 hours. I said, you're leaving Albuquerque to come see me in Denver to talk to me? Why can't you just tell me over the phone? And she says, I really need to speak to you in person. And she said, I suggest you call into work.
And she got there. She comes to the door.
Well, first, my uncle has worked for APD. And so I called him first, and I said, this woman contacted me from the AG's office. I don't know who she is, what she's doing, but you need to get as much information on her as possible. And then I called attorneys for myself because I thought, you know, my mom got busted with drugs and that they would put me responsible and, you know, for leaving Cheyenne in her care. So it was the worst 7 hours of my life. I put the kids next door to the neighbor's house because I just didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to get arrested or anything. And then she showed up.
You had mentioned that you had broken off the relationship with your mom, and then it tried to rebuild things. And I know that in looking back, that's a regret, but that's a very natural thing to do. You had recently seen your mom and her boyfriend, Chris Gourlay, through this process. Tell us about the experience of finding the crack pipe and what happened with that, what your thoughts were.
Well, it was before the twins were born. We were living here in Albuquerque, and my mom was staying with us while I worked full-time. I just got out of beauty school, and my husband at the time was working as well. And Cheyenne and my mom were very close. Cheyenne was the first grandchild. And so my mom stayed with us, and I was putting Cheyenne's laundry away in her room, which is where my mom stayed, and the crib was in there as well. And I found a crack pipe on the dresser. And Cheyenne at this time was using the furniture to walk, to learn how to walk. And I confronted my mom, and I said, I can't believe you would even bring this in my house. And my husband at the time got very angry, actually pinned her against the wall and told her to get out.
Had you seen any signs, anything that made you wary before that? Did you think that everything was okay?
You know, my mom has always been really weird. She she always used to say she was 50-50, and the family would always, you know, your mom's on something, but as a child, you know, you don't want to see your mom in that light. So I always just kind of pulled the wool over my eyes and always made excuses for her. So I knew she had her issues, but I never thought she would bring it into my house.
Well, this would be then when you would discuss when your mom lived with you and the time that she spent with Cheyenne. You felt like they were building a good relationship.
Oh yeah,
so they were close.
She was a fun grandma. She'd take Cheyenne out to the mountains and paint rocks. Take you know, baths outside in bathtubs. Like there was a place up in the mountains that had bathtubs, and she'd take her out there and go swimming. And they did everything. They went to the zoo. And Cheyenne loved her meeting.
So despite all the drug issues, she was becoming.
She was a great grandma.
She was becoming a grandma. So now we forward up. It's 2008. Lois Kinch is arriving at the door. You don't know what to expect.
I don't know what to expect. I'm thinking drugs.
And in she comes.
So in she comes, and she sat us down, and she says, I have a couple photos that I'd like to show you. And the first one was of Cheyenne in a bikini at the pool. And she goes, is this your daughter? And I said, yes, that's Cheyenne. She goes, we found this picture on a child pornography website. And we seized your mom's apartment, and on the camera we found more pictures. And I'd like to show those to you. And she pulled them out, and it was of a little girl. You couldn't see her face. Her face was cut off in all the pictures, like somebody was actually like posing so that you couldn't see her face, and you would like see the angle. And she was in a princess outfit. A princess dress-up outfit, which I had in the closet, the exact one. It wasn't one you could buy at Target or Walmart. It was something that my mom bought at a thrift store. And her fingernails were painted, and Christopher Goulet, my mom's fiance, had his head between her legs. He had her up in the sky, and he was inserting things in her. And they asked me, they said, is that your daughter? And as much as I wanted to say, you got the wrong child, it's not my kid, I couldn't deny it.
It breaks our heart just to hear about this. And thank you for having the courage to talk about this in public, because this is such an issue and it's so much more widespread than anybody ever wants to admit. Can you go back to what went through your mind at that very moment?
That this wasn't happening. We were never touched as children. Cheyenne came out here for 2 weeks on vacation. I never thought it would go that far, and I kept asking myself, is that, you know, what am I getting myself into? Is that really her? You know, but there was no denying that it was. I know my own daughter, you know, and she had special birthmarks and stuff. And I remember Lois saying, have you ever seen that dress before? And I said, I have it in the closet. And I handed it over. And it just, I was in shock. I couldn't even cry. I couldn't even cry.
Your kids were not there.
They were not there. They were next door at a neighbor's house,
Thank God.
which was a very good friend of ours.
The blessing itself. But so then, tell us about Cheyenne's Safe House interview.
Well, a couple days after Lois was at our house. Now, first of all, Lois had told us that, you know, Chris was in custody. He had a $500,000 bond, and as soon as she got home, she was going to ask for $1 million. but they weren't going to arrest my mom because they didn't have enough evidence that she took the pictures. They really honestly believe my mother took the pictures. And so we had a steakhouse interview about 4 or 5 days after we had found out. Cheyenne was 5 at the time, and she didn't say anything. They showed her a picture of a gingerbread man with private parts and said, you know, can you show us what that is? What are those boobs? Do you know what that is? Like, they were pointing at private parts on the gingerbread man. And Cheyenne was denying that she knew what any of the parts were. She was acting like she didn't even know what boobs were or a butt was or any of that stuff. So it wasn't a very good interview. And I think she was just really scared and nervous because, you know, my mom did groom her to not tell. And we found that out later. So I think she was just really terrified.
I was going to ask about that because that's the common denominator in abuse is either threats or sweet talking. That, well, this is just our little secret, or if you ever let anybody else know. Did you eventually find out? You mentioned
it all came together. It all came together. Cheyenne used to say things like, Mimi says I can never ever do anything wrong ever. So like if Cheyenne got in trouble for something, for not sharing or taking something from her sisters, you know, I would try to, you can't do that. And she'll say, well, Mimi says I can never do anything wrong ever. So you can't punish me. You know, or Mimi feeds me M&Ms for breakfast. And I called my mom, this was before the allegation, and I told her, I said, Mom, you can't tell her those things because I can't be a parent. I can't punish her because she just doesn't think she does anything wrong.
Well, grandparents tend to do that
Yeah.
naturally. I mean, you know, they drive away and have a lot of fun doing it. So that wouldn't seem necessarily out of the ordinary.
And then when Cheyenne was out here in Albuquerque on vacation with my mother, my grandmother had called me, and she had Cheyenne over for the night, and she said, Cheyenne is telling me this insane story about the cops coming over and arresting you and how she'll never see you again. And so then I called my mom and I said, Mom, what's going on out there? And she said, oh, the neighbors next door, the cops were called and they arrested the parents and the kids were crying. Later to find out, my mom would tell Cheyenne, if you ever say anything, the cops will come, they'll arrest your mom and dad, and you'll never see them again.
Correct. The threat. In hindsight, did you notice behavior change in Cheyenne when she came home from this experience?
No, not very much, just that she felt like she couldn't do anything wrong. She had these weird dress-up clothes. I remember one day she came out, because my mom had sent her home with a small little Sesame Street suitcase full of dress-up clothes. And I was sitting having coffee with a girlfriend, and my daughter and her daughter were in the room playing, and they came out in dress-up clothes, and Cheyenne had lingerie, like a little lingerie outfit. And I said, where did you get that? Oh, it was in the suitcase Mimi gave me. You know, and I took it off of her, and I threw it in the trash, and I was embarrassed. And I called my mom, and I said, Mom, she goes, oh, I must have accidentally left that in. You know, so Cheyenne didn't know any better. You know, she was 4 or 5, so she was just a happy kid, but after the trip with my mom, she just never felt like she could do anything wrong.
What were your experiences with the boyfriend, Chris Zulay, up to this point? Did you ever have a feeling that there was anything that was off? Or
no, that's the weirdest thing about the whole situation. After the crack pipe incident with my mom, I didn't speak to her for about 3 years. I didn't have no contact with my mom whatsoever when I moved back to Colorado. When I had the twins was the first time I talked to my mom, because my family had told me, you know, your mom's doing really good, she got her teeth fixed, she's enrolled in school, she has a fiance that works for some lab company for medical labs and does lasers, and your mom's really doing great. Well, having twins was such a special thing. You know, I wanted to share that with her. I wanted to share that with my mom. So I came out when the twins were 6 weeks old, met Chris for the first time, went to my mom's house. It was clean. She had gained weight. She was cooking. She was like the mom I remember. Of course, with her little crazy issues, but you know, she was the mom that I remembered. And Chris he clean cut and he was very respectful and he was so excited to meet the children that I felt good. I felt like my mom was finally getting something.
So now, you grew up here,
I was born here. I mostly grew up in Colorado. I've been back and forth.
but you had family here.
Lots of family.
So walk us through, after this experience, walk us through the next few years. What happened with family
After we
here?
found out.
Right. What transpired? How that affected everything?
Well, first of all, my mom wasn't arrested until 6 months after we found out the allegation. And how she was arrested was for Cheyenne's second safe house interview. Cheyenne had been in therapy for 6 months already, and I had talked to the schools, I talked to everybody and said, if you see any changes in her, will you please let me know, because we're going through this situation, and I just would like to know. One of the teachers at her school contacted me and said, Cheyenne is drawing some very awkward pictures. So I went to get one of them, and she drew a picture of my mom with a camera in her hand. And my mom had short hair, but she would wear those fake ponytail clips and put them in her hair. Cheyenne actually drew a picture of her with the fake ponytail in her hair. So I had right away called Brett Lovelace, which was our attorney at the time. It's now a judge. I called him and let him know what was going on. He goes, let's get another safe house interview. We can only do 2, because after that it's considered phishing if the kid is not talking. So she went, Lois went up there as well to Denver to go to the safe house interview, and Cheyenne just spilled all the beans. This is my niece, she had a camera, Chris did this to me, this is what happened, and she goes, I'm done talking. And she walked out of the room, and that gave them enough probable cause to arrest my mom. She was arrested the next day. It hit the channel news. From that day forward, my family stopped talking to me. Completely stopped talking to me. My mother's sister and her husband were Cheyenne's godparents. I haven't heard from her since the day my mom was arrested. So right away, a letter went out across the family saying that I was making this all up, that Candace over-exaggerates everything. When my mom was arrested, we found out that she had AIDS. And that was another made-up story that I had made to the family. Oh, she doesn't have AIDS, she's not dying, she's not sick. You know, so it was a lot of blame on my side. A lot of blame.
We want to talk about the family issues because those of you that deal with this professionally know that's a constant. That the families tend to take the side of the perpetrator. They don't want to believe it. They make excuses. And we're going to get into this in a little bit of detail because it's so important. Let's back up a little bit. Between the time of what you just described and when you first heard about the allegations, did you have any contacts with your mother, any conversations, and what were those like?
I had one. The day after Lois showed up at the door, I had called my mom. Because first of all, Lois, when she showed up at my house, she was shocked. She said, I looked up your driver's license, and you have a federal gaming license, which means you have to be fingerprinted for. She goes, you've never been arrested. I come in your house, and it's clean. You have a St. Bernard and a white picket fence. She goes, this is not what I was expecting. Your mother told me that you were a drug addict, and that you and your husband didn't care about the children, and that you live in a shitty part of town in Denver. That's exactly what she told me. And she was shocked that we were a normal family. So the next day, I had contacted my mom because Lois told me that she was shocked I didn't know about the pictures because she said that my mom was going to contact me and inform me of what was going on, but she never did. So when I called my mom, and it had been 24 hours, so I was still like really angry and frustrated and just trying to figure it all out. I'm like, Mom, what the hell is going on? They're saying that Chris was doing this to Cheyenne. I saw pictures, but you can't see Cheyenne's face, and they believe you took the pictures. And she goes, well, if I ever knew that he did anything like that, I would have killed him. I go, but it's a full-on face of him. It's not a side view, it's not a back view, it's a full-on face of your fiance between some little girl's legs. So you're going to try and tell me that you don't believe that he did anything? Or that you would kill him? I go, he's on $1 million bond. And she goes, well, if I heard anything, I would have killed him. And that was the last time I talked to my mom.
Then once the family fallout began, you had to have felt like you were being victimized all over again in a completely different way.
I thought for a while, am I doing the right thing? Should I have just said that this wasn't my daughter? The family made me feel like I was blowing it up, that I was dramatizing it, that I was making it up. And after a while, you kind of feel that way. Am I going along with the story? Am I going along with the allegations? Is this really happening? Am I doing the right thing by continuing to, fight? Or should I just drop it and forget about it and let my family be?
Because that's the easy thing to do.
That is an easy thing to do, is to walk away, and everybody wanted me to walk away. Why can't you just let this go? Why can't you just drop it?
It occurs to me, this is the key crux of the entire problem. We talked about backstage a little bit, and you all know this, I'm guessing, that, when I think of this, I'm thinking, okay, you need to teach your kids that safe places to touch, not to touch, when to tell somebody, all these things. And yet, it's in the family. It's somebody the child knows, which makes it, and it's your own mother.
Lois had asked me, have you ever talked to Cheyenne about good touch, bad touch, and keeping secrets? And I said, no, she's 4 or 5. I've never left her with anybody. She could tell you how to fight off a stranger, in a second. I go, but I've never talked to her about that. We don't touch us children. And now, I look back and I'm like, why didn't I say anything? Because I didn't know. There is not enough out there.
And when you say you didn't leave her with anybody,
she was my own mother.
You didn't leave her with anybody you didn't know or part of the family. And what does somebody know the stats? Isn't it 98 or 80% of the kids who are abused by someone who they're close with, they're friends with? That's the crux. I just bring that up.
But another very common thing is that while you are being victimized, all of a sudden you felt like the guilty party on 2 different fronts. Guilty for not perhaps mentioning that issue to your daughter, and guilty for what your mother was being accused of.
I felt very guilty. It destroyed my marriage. I held on to a lot of guilt, even though I didn't do this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to put my daughter in that position. I couldn't help but feel guilty for what was going on. Somebody was going to lose in this situation. Either my mom was going to lose and she was going to go to prison for the rest of her life, or my daughter was going to lose. But somebody was losing in the situation, and I couldn't help but feel responsible for being in the middle.
And very seldom do marriages survive these kinds of things. There's a lot of added pressure.
Well, it was my own mother. It wasn't just a family friend or an uncle or weird cousin. It was my own mother.
So you're dealing with all this emotionally. What a horrific thing to deal with. Now we jump into the legal system. Now the legal system is involved. And now, and this is, I want to hear about this, because this is the frustration I'm sure people hear too. Bernalillo County District Court Judge Charles Brown disallowed the camera that contained all the graphic photographs of your daughter.
He did it the day before my birthday. I was getting ready to leave to Albuquerque. I was packing my bag, getting ready to go to trial. And I got a call from Brett Lovelace, and he said, I'm sorry, Candace, but Judge Charles Brown just threw out the pictures. And I'm like, how can he do that? You see a picture, it's just like seeing somebody get stabbed, literally stabbed, and then just saying, oh, forget we ever saw those pictures. Just forget that they were even there. And I said, well, how can he do that? And he said, well, it's a technicality on the warrant. It they found the pictures on the internal memory of the camera. And the internal memory was not on the warrants. So he had probable cause the day before trial to throw out the pictures.
Did that put all the pressure on testimony from your daughter? Did she ever have to do that?
Well, we knew she was going to testify, but she was really young. And so we hadn't prepped her yet for trial. We wanted to wait to see if they would take a plea bargain or something, so we wouldn't have to put Cheyenne through that stress of having to testify at trial. So she was fine. It was me trying to get prepped for trial and to move forward, and all of a sudden it's like, forget you ever saw those pictures.
Now, the good ending to that part of the story is the Attorney General's office went to the Supreme Court.
Well, first I went to the Court of Appeals, and we lost. And I remember Shannon Murdoch telling me, we can take it to the Supreme Court, but that's going to take 3.5 years, and they only accept a certain amount of cases. And I told her, I don't care what you have to do or how long it takes. You showed up at my door, I didn't show up at yours, and I'm not ready to close it. So take it as high as you can take it. I didn't know what that all entailed. I didn't know what that all meant. Once we took it to the Supreme Court, things were quiet. I didn't hear from anybody for 2 years, 2.5 years. And I just kind of wondered, you know, is it over? My mom was released out on bond when we lost to the Court of Appeals. Christopher Goulet stayed in, but my mom had no criminal background. So they went ahead and released her out on bond. So knowing that my mom was at the casino, eating Lotto Burger, hanging out with her nieces and her cousins, and babysitting small children. She was babysitting children 5 days a week while out on bond. Just upset me.
What was going on with you and your daughter during this period of time? Did she start therapy at this point?
But she had started therapy the first week we had dug out the allegations. We kind of slowed down therapy for her because I was going through my divorce. It was getting to be a lot going back and forth to therapy. And at that point, I was just trying to move on with my life. But every day, it was still in the back of my head of going, are we ever going to get justice on this? Ever.
And I want to remind folks, you were in Denver. You had to travel here.
I've been to 37 hearings here in Albuquerque, all on my own, mostly on my own dime. I traveled last minute. Sometimes they only give me 5 or 6 days notice.
You mentioned the word on your own, or the phrase on my own dime. And no doubt that the financial cost has been big, but the family, the psychological cost has been bigger. What has this cost you?
It's cost me my whole world. It's cost me my marriage. I've lost jobs. I haven't been able to go on vacation because you never know when you're going to go to court or when there's going to be another motion hearing. I mean, I've lost time with my children that I'll never get back. You know, Cheyenne has never seen Disneyland. Now she's getting too old. She doesn't care about princesses, you know? And
oh, that never goes away. What about the relationships with extended family? Now that this is all said and done, has that changed? Have you been able to rebuild any of those relationships?
I have not. My brothers and sisters don't talk to me. I still get blamed. It's only been 3 weeks since sentencing, but I get blamed for putting my mom in jail. I get blamed for what she has done. We have not, my extended family, we have not, nobody has reached out. I have a couple cousins that have been through with me since day one. They have been right beside me, fighting just along with me. But the rest of the family hasn't even contacted me.
And just one quick follow-up. This huge cost, you've paid a major price, but you are convinced that it's been worth it.
Completely, 100% worth it. I've been saying since day one of this happening, especially with Lois telling me, have you ever spoke to Cheyenne about good touch, bad touch, and keeping secrets. Since that day forward, I've been waiting for this case to end so I can share my story, so I can make awareness, so you can walk into a welfare office and see a pamphlet of have you talked to your children yet? Because it's such a sensitive subject, nobody wants to talk about it.
You said, I mean, this story is off the charts in terms of difficulty here, and you know that. I mean, these people deal with it all the time. It's still difficult for them to hear this story. But you said backstage you want to move mountains.
I do. I want to
change
move
the world.
mountains.
First of all, let me say, on behalf of everyone here, you are moving mountains, and you are changing the world. There is no.
Thank you.
So I know you thought about this. What do you say to parents? What do you say to them about this whole situation that gives them the tools they need?
You have to stand beside your children 100%. I think our children learn from example. I have missed a lot of time with my daughter, driving back and forth to Albuquerque. But as she will get older, she'll realize that I did it for her. And not just for her, but for everyone. Because now that we have been to the Supreme Court and we won, they're already using our case in other states, which is already putting perpetrators away. You know, and I refuse to let my daughter be a victim. I refuse to let her be a statistic. I want her, as she grows up, to know that my mom fought so hard for me. She may have not been there for me all the time, but she fought really hard for me. And she continues to fight for me and for other children, that she will not have problems in relationships. She will not have issues with her children. She will not have a hard time getting through this. She is going to be an advocate as she gets older. I can already see it. I can already see it in her. And she leads by example. So I think, you know, when I was going through all of this, I even went to group counseling. And I realized that there is a lot of families out there who are going through this who just want to push it under the rug and forget about it. A lot of them do have drug and alcohol issues themselves. But, you know, it takes one strong mom to say enough is enough. You look at Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, Mothers Against Guns. It was one parent that just said, it stops here. And if parents could just realize that our children, when something bad happens, the best thing to do is just to stand up for them. Who cares if you lose your whole family? You don't choose your family, but you choose to make sure that your children grow up and be respected and outstanding citizens. That's our job as a parent.
A lot of times, it's the extended family members who will first become aware of, or at least suspicious of, abuse going on. And they're not sure that maybe they have the standing or the position to say something or to bring this up. I had a private message on Facebook within the past month of a lady who was very concerned about something going on in a local case. It was getting a lot of press. I encouraged her to go ahead and step forward, but it was very, very difficult. What would you say to people in that situation where it's not my child, but I have a strong feeling that there's something wrong?
They need to speak up. Our children cannot speak up for themselves. It's sad that when adults choose sides, you know, that they don't protect the children. And, you know, the families, it may be hard to lose your whole family and to tell the truth and to fight, but our children need us. Even if it's someone that you don't know, you know, or you do very little, like your friend that, you know, is wanting to say something, but she's worried that she's going to lose her family. You know, family is not everything. Blood is not thicker than water.
So what are the next 10 years like?
I'm looking forward to the next 10 years. I just signed up for the first time for college. I've been doing hair 14 years, and I'm tired of it. And I have just signed up for public relations. I would love to do more conferences. I want to be able to walk into a welfare office and see a pamphlet, have you talked to your children yet? I want to share my story. I think it helps me to heal. It will help my daughter to heal. And it would make everybody else just kind of look at their own family. I mean, my mother did this to my daughter. I don't know if we have a picture of my mom from when she was younger, but if you look at how my mom used to be, and then you look at her now, it's all about drugs and alcohol, and, you would never think that your own parent would do something like this, and I just want people to look at their whole entire family.
You are such a good example for all of us, no matter what we're facing. You go home and you complain about the boss, or you go to work and complain about your spouse, and you feel like life is tough at times. But you've been through hell on earth.
Yeah.
What do you credit as your source when people tell you, I can't do this by myself? What did you use to get through? Where does your strength come from?
Well, I don't know. For a long time there, I was really angry at God. I definitely think that He has been there for me this whole entire time. And just in the last 2 years, I've really gotten to know Him more. But before, it was just my children, my kids. And the crazy thing, the way my mom was when she was young, when we were younger, my mom always taught me to stand beside your children 100%, no matter what. And then it's unfortunate that it's her I'm standing against. So I just kept fighting. My children needed me to.
I think we need like 5 minutes. I don't know if somebody here professionally has a question, but let me say this. We are all now part of your story. When I mentioned tools that we all have that we can use now, I mean, you all have all the stories that you've heard before, and now we have this story. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone. We're going to take this with us for the rest of our lives and hopefully help you make a big difference.
And let me ask you a question, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. We have a lot of social workers here. A lot of times they may be dealing with people that are facing the questions, the fear that you went through. If it is a situation where they feel like speaking personally with you privately on the telephone or exchanging emails with somebody, are you willing to reach out to people?
I'd be more than happy to be a victim advocate. I think people that are going through this need to know that they're not alone and that they can get through this. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done, and if I could just share my story with somebody who's going through the same thing and go, okay, we're going to get through this, and it took 7 years out of my life, and it's better now than it's ever been. This is the happiest I've ever been in my whole entire life, and if I could just share with somebody and kind of help them through it and support them through it, that would be amazing. I'd be so grateful to do that.
Is this, Lynn, is this being recorded?
Yes.
So will this be online, and is that all right with you?
Yes.
Is it online?
It's a live feed, right?
It's a live feed. So somewhere in the internet, as we all know, it exists now from now forward. So if you want to share this with other people, there's that opportunity.
This is not my last conference. I don't believe so. I hope not. I hope that this is going to open up hundreds of doors. I'm ready to change the world with mountains.
Can we have a round of applause for this young woman?
Thank you. Any questions out there?
We've got like 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll give you guys the results so you don't have the results. 3 weeks ago, we sentenced Christopher Gooley to 21 years in prison with a 72-year tail, meaning he screws up and going back in for the full 72. And then my mother had taken a plea of 18 to 30, and she was sentenced to 25. About 3 weeks ago. And it still hasn't hit me yet. To be honest with you, I haven't even cried about it yet. It still hasn't hit me. I think that it feels like everybody asks me, how does it feel? that your mom is going to jail. Now, she does have full-blown AIDS, so she's not coming out. She's going to come out in a brown box. And people are like, how does that feel? And I just tell them, it feels like someone died, like who had Alzheimer's or cancer, and you're just a relief, but it's still sad. And the thing I wonder the most is, how is she adjusted? How does she adjust to something like that? And I do feel responsible for her life. I feel I can't help but feel that I'm part of her dying in jail.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Lady in red.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you couldn't hear that, and Chris had a history. You mentioned something that made me think that there was some previous history with him that nobody was aware of.
I don't know if Chris actually had any previous. He's had other stuff, drugs, alcohol, and stuff like that, but he was never convicted on any other kind of child pornography or anything like that. He had a past with drugs, and I think that.
It's something Steve said. I thought it was really important. And I think it's something that the general public does not understand or know. I go back to the statistic about most kids who are abused by someone they know or abused by a family member. Did a program years ago about mental health issues. The same holds true here. We speak in front of groups and say, how many of you have diabetes in your family? And a third of the people raise their hands. How many of you have heart disease in your family? And 3/4 of the people raise their hand. How many of you have mental health issues in the family? Nobody did. It was amazing. And yet, most people do. And I think that information, the fact that if the abuser is always someone they know, almost always, or someone in the family, we don't want to admit it. You said it really well. You don't want to admit it.
I was sharing backstage. I became a pastor 3 years ago, and over the process of the past 3 years, I have come to realize that I'm not the only one whose family is weird. Everybody's family is a little weird. And anybody who wants to tell me that their family is not a little weird, that's very weird. So my point in this, and doing this in sort of a fun way, is to open it up and just to make us realize that we all have problems. We all have issues, whatever they might be, whether it's drugs and alcohol or sex or thievery or anger or violence. Every family is touched by this. It's the human condition. And if, while we don't want to revel in it, if we can just bring ourselves to open up and admit that, to realize that it is out there, that it exists, and it's not something that we need to be ashamed of and hide away, because secrecy is the way that the enemy wins victory.
It's not easy to tell people that your mom is a sexual abuser, a child abuser. It's not easy to accept that.